Hello guys, me again. As promised, I will be producing a video on the financial problems of the Weimar government. A quick shout out to Alan, Oscar and Jamie who asked for one. I will explore the idea of giveaways. I have no idea how to do that, but give me time, I'll think about it. And people have also been requesting like an opening. No idea. Please give me some ideas. I'll just stick to what I'm good at, which is Nazi Germany and history. So I'll dive straight into it. Financial problems of the Weimar government. Well, you've got to understand that the Weimar government comes in straight after World War I. So it's already going to be on the back foot purely because Germany is bankrupt and heavily in debt as a result of World War I. So it has no money. And secondly, the Treaty of Versailles, which is signed not long after World War I, which forces Germany to pay £6,600 million back to France, America and Britain. That's a huge amount of money. Clemenceau, the French premier, wanted it to be more. But ultimately, that was still a huge amount of money that Germany really couldn't afford to pay. It wasn't all up front, they would pay in instalments, and ultimately they didn't have to pay just in cash, they could pay with resources as well. But either way, right from the beginning, the Weimar government is going to be in financial meltdown. It's got no real chance. So in 1921, the French managed to pay the first instalment of the Treaty of Versailles reparations. Let's not forget it's called reparations, what they had to pay back. They pay the first instalment. Second instalment, a year after, they don't manage to do it. So in 1922, they don't manage to actually pay the instalment back. There's a bit of debate as to whether they actually could, and they're just stalling for time, but it doesn't matter because the French and the Belgians believe none of it. They believe that the Germans are trying to get away from their obligations to pay back the money for causing the war in World War I. So the French and the Belgians decided to invade in January 1923. They decided to invade the main German economic area of the Ruhr, which is R-U-H-R, the Ruhr, which is where Germany produces a huge amount of its exports. The French and Belgian troops go in there and literally just take what they want. Now, in response to this, the German government at the time, and Ebert is the president, but he doesn't necessarily order this, the government order the German people in the Ruhr to go on strike and to passively resist the French and the Belgians, not to attack them, not to shoot them, not to beat them up, but to passively resist. And they do. The only problem is the French don't take that very well, and ultimately, I'll just got a text message. Anyway, so ultimately the French don't take it very well. They kill 100 protesters, not at the same time, and over 100,000 Ruhr Germans are displaced during this crisis. And secondly, because they are passively resisting and going on strike in the Ruhr, Germany's economy is nosediving. They're not producing anything which they can then export. So things are going incredibly badly. The German government in response to this just continued to print money. Now, hyperinflation is the massive financial weakness or financial issue that the Weimar government has to face, hyperinflation. Now, in class, I talked to you about the hyperinflation. You don't need to know the macroeconomics behind it and the reasons for it, but just remember, if a government prints excessive amounts of extra notes, that's not good, because what that means is prices of goods rise, okay? Prices of goods rise. So with the German government printing more and more now, it's kind of like a sense of a chain reaction, like a cycle of idiocy, really, where prices of bread, and we'll stick with price of bread because that's usually the benchmark for inflation. Price of bread increases drastically. And it increases day by day, hour by hour. So with German people, obviously, it's queuing up for bread, and the price of bread increases by the time they got to the end of the queue to pay for it. And eventually, the price of bread is 200 billion marks, which is excessive amounts. And people are, it's stupid, it's absolutely crazy. They're getting paid once, maybe twice a day. They're giving huge amounts of marks, which is basically worthless. And they're basically walking around with all their marks in wheelbarrows or other means to carry it. You may have seen in the pictures, some are using it basically to burn, to keep warm in the winter. Some are using it as wallpaper, because it's worthless. You know, a price of bread, 200 billion marks is just too much. Well, ultimately, in this situation, there are huge losers. The working class are obviously not going to be in a very good situation here, but the middle class and the rich are really the ones that miss out. And before, in the early, say 1920, middle class had a huge amount of savings maybe, which could have bought them a house. Well, during the hyperinflation crisis, now they couldn't buy a cup of coffee with the amount they had in the bank. So they lose everything. And the rich also lose excessive amounts of money. Well, what can you do when your economy is worthless? You end up bartering. So you swap your goods. So if you've got a camera, say the camera I'm using for you to watch this, you would swap the camera for bread. Or whatever you've got of value, you swap for something else you need. So the bartering went on a lot in the hyperinflation crisis. So people lost a lot of other things as well. Well, Gustav Stresemann becomes Chancellor in 1923, and he immediately calls an end to the hyperinflation, the passive resistance in the Ruhr, which means that the French eventually leave, and the Belgians eventually leave, and the German economy starts producing things more. He calls in the worthless old currency and introduces a new one called the Rentenmark, and they burn all the old cash. And they negotiate loans from the Americans under the Dawes Plan, which comes a little bit later, but the Dawes Plan is negotiated. So they get more American money to help them pay off their debts, but also to help pay for infrastructure, to get people back into work. Now, a lot of Germans are unhappy with calling off the passive resistance in the Ruhr, and this is one of the reasons that leads to the Munich Putsch, which is obviously the Nazis' attempt to take over Munich. But all in all, the German economy, the Weimar economy, does recover relatively quickly under these new schemes, and we know that the mid to late 1920s are called the Golden Age and the boom, where under Stresemann's, he's not Chancellor for very long actually, but they call it the Stresemann years because he's in every single government, and things get better for the Weimar government after that. Of course, until 1929 in October, when coincidentally Stresemann dies and the Wall Street crash happens. But that's for another video. Thank you very much for watching again. Keep liking, keep watching, and keep learning.